She's also a savvy young marketer, amassing over 1,000 followers on TikTok, and inspiring and connecting with her fellow teens through the creative journey that she shares. Her path from bullied a middle schooler to celebrated young author is a testament to resilience, imagination, and also creativity. Please join me by giving a warm welcome to Shanti Hershenson. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
My goodness, you are amazing. I was just looking at everything up as I did my research, and I'm just like, yo, I need to really get on the ball. Like, geez Louise, like, you got to do something. Nah, it helped me just really put things in perspective a lot. Shanti, take us back to the beginning, right? Where you published your first book at the age of 12, and what ignited that spark to start writing at such a young age?
Almost like there's two beginnings.
Okay.
I was in 6th grade. I think I just turned 12 years old, and me and my friend decided that we wanted to write this little book together. It's quite short, maybe around like 50 pages. We took a lot of inspiration from all of these different fantasy worlds and video games and TV shows, and we piled that into these two little volumes. And then after that, I really wanted to get a printed copy of the book.
Hello, everyone. This is your boy, Michael Rashad Oliver Yerby, here on the Zenroku Podcast Network. On Unfiltered Fridays, we have a special guest, but I'm going to wait for everyone to get into the chat, as we pull everything together. Just give you guys a moment to get you guys situated. I know you see we're live here, ready to go. Give people a moment to get in, and we're about to start now. Okay. Shanti Hershenson is a 16, I think she's 17 now.
Yeah,
17-year author who's, since at the age of 12, has published over 30 books across genres like sci-fi, fantasy, dystopian, historical fiction, and even poetry. Her notable work and also acclaimed novel in verse you won't know her name was bravely tackling the traumas of bullying. Beyond the page, Shanti has become a passionate anti-bullying advocate, even performing spoken word pieces like Needles and Thorns at open mic nights to share the harsh reality of middle school bullying. She's also a savvy young marketer, amassing over 1,000 followers on TikTok, and inspiring and connecting with her fellow teens through the creative journey that she shares. Her path from bullied middle schooler to celebrated young author is a testament to resilience, imagination, and also creativity. Please join me by giving a warm welcome to Shanti Hershenson. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
My goodness, you are amazing. I was just looking at everything up as I did my research, and I'm just like, yo, I need to really get on the ball. Like, geez Louise, like, you got to do something. Nah, it helped me just really put things in perspective a lot. Shanti, take us back to the beginning, right? Where you published your first book at the age of 12, and what ignited that spark to start writing at such a young age?
Okay, this is gonna sound strange, but it's almost
Yeah.
like there's two beginnings.
Okay.
So first off, I'll take you way back to the start, or at least the start of my professional career. I was in 6th grade. I think I just turned 12 years old, and me and my friend decided that we wanted to write this little book together. It's quite short, maybe around like 50 pages. It's this really silly novella, just where there's all this stuff going on. We took a lot of inspiration from all of these different fantasy worlds and video games and TV shows, and we piled that into these two little volumes. And then after that, I really wanted to get a printed copy of the book. And the way that I figured out I could do that didn't have all of these crazy formatting things that I did not understand, and just the one that happened to work was Amazon's Kindle Direct Publishing. So I basically was like, you know what? I want to publish a book. You're 12, you don't really think about what that means and how cool that is. You're just like, I'm going to publish a book. And so I did. And it was really sudden. It was kind of crazy. It was sort of this little fun project we did. I was the kind of kid who I was not a stranger to this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
When I was about 10 or 11, I used to code these little video games that I would then publish to the Google Play Store. I made when I was like, I think this was actually around the same time, I made this GarageBand music. You know, like the Apple platform GarageBand? I
Yeah,
made
yeah.
this like these little beats that I would publish on like SoundCloud and just like Apple Music and everything like that. So I was never like, and I also had a YouTube channel when I was a kid. I made movies. I was never like, I grew up never a stranger to put myself out there.
Okay.
And well, I kind of just jumped on it at 12 and was like, I want to publish this book. After that, that's what gave me that like knowledge that I could, and like knowing that I could do it, to then go and actually officially start my career, where I started writing this book. And once I knew how to do it and I knew the different options from traditional publishing to self-publishing, then
Mhm.
from there I just like kept working on this book. I learned a lot about editing and cover design and how to like reach out to professionals and hire them. And yeah, by the time that I was 13 years old, I had another book out that I had to market and actually like kind of almost treat as a real book rather
Wow.
than a project, which I mean, they're all real books, but you know what I
Mhm.
mean.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. That's pretty cool. Man, that is like it's so inspirational. Like, geez Louise, like a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people don't have that drive. And you're not afraid. One thing I used to be definitely afraid of rejection and hearing the word no. And then my wife put it kind of in perspective for me. She's like, babe, the worst they can say is no. She's like, literally, you don't have to, as soon as they say no, you don't have to stand around for anything else if you don't want to. I was like, you know what? She's right. And so it gave me the boldness to actually stand up for myself and actually move forward in things. And I learned that lesson late. And it seems like you learned that lesson quite early. And that's amazing. I love that. You know, not everything has been easy on this journey as you described. I know you faced severe bullying in middle school, which inspired your novels and your poetry. Can you share what that time was like emotionally for you and how you decided to pour all those experiences into poetry so it can kind of free yourself?
Yeah, that was probably like the most intense time in my entire life,
Hmm.
mainly because there was so much going on.
Yeah.
I had just experienced like bullying much more severe and much deeper than anything I'd experienced before. Like suddenly, like the like comments that like kids made in elementary school that used to make me cry, like felt completely just like nothing compared. And at the same time, I'd also moved 2 hours away to a completely new city, started a new school, and then lockdown happened. So I was stuck trying to cope with all these things at once and sort of face the reality of like the things that I'd been to, but also like figure out who I was. And once I started writing, that really unlocked the ability to cope in a new way. First off, it started where I was writing poems, and these poems I would write just about like how I felt and the anger that I was feeling, the sadness, and I would perform them. Actually, the first poem I ever wrote about it was for school, in which I had, and this was still like, I was so young that I barely even understood what had happened to me. So the poem is like, this person's being mean to me because I like this TV show. No, that's not actually, it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
But actually, I started writing because, like, about that poem about people being mean to me based on what I'd like before I was actually, like, seriously being bullied. And then after that, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm literally just, like, experienced what I've been writing about again.
Yeah.
So that was the first poem I ever performed. And then from that, I just started writing more and more alongside writing novels. And I decided, like, I really want to write a book about this because it's not okay how schools handle, like, bullying.
Yeah.
And I don't feel content. And it's like, I need to let this story out or, like, I'm going to go crazy. And at first, I tried to write it as a novel. I tried to like I have so many first chapters in my like Google Docs where it's like all of these different ways of telling this really complicated story. And the other thing that was complicated about it is all of the people that were going to be characters in the story, whether they liked it or not, were still in my life. So I didn't, it was a very slippery
Yeah.
slope because it's like I can't just, yes, like I've been kind of wronged, but I can't just, put this person's name in the story and then at the same time I can't just change a name and create a new character because that didn't feel right. Like I didn't exactly want to write like a fictionalized version, but I also didn't want to write like this tell-all memoir.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
finally I decided on poetry, and it's this novel where really the characters are almost placeholders and you can put yourself in the story. You can imagine the characters however you want. And that allowed it not only to be a story about myself, but about the overall experience of bullying in middle school and
Wow.
how, like, this is kind of, in many ways, a universal thing. Like, sure, my experiences are unique to me, but in the same way, they're not. And I think that's what really worked about the book. Another thing is the poetry is pretty juvenile. And Well, that was partly because I was 13. It's also partly purposeful
Yeah,
because it
yeah.
sounds like these sound like things that could be written by I mean, the main character of the book's 11, and it
Mhm.
sounds like it could be written by the character who's 11. And in the
Uh-huh.
book, she's also writing poetry, so it's this sort of like combination of these worlds, and it's this really immersive experience that's both
Mm.
beautiful and heartbreaking.
Yeah, see, and man, that is so, s s it's so freeing in which how you express it, because even coming from the, viewpoint as a young lady or just a young person in general writing like that, and it's raw, it's real, it's fiction, it doesn't come off with, the formal tones of, what you see in most, poetic writing, but it's just, like, in your face. It's letting you know how I feel, why I feel this way, and giving you an overall, I guess, and it was kind of unique how you wrote it, like in a generalized way, where people can insert themselves into the storyline and see themselves from different point of views. Like if they were bullying somebody and never knew, or they just thought it was common culture because they seen it or emulated that, right? It's pretty amazing. Like I like the way you was writing. Like I love poetry myself, and just going over your work, I'm really amazed. And it's
Thank you.
Man, it shows your vulnerability and healing in your writing, and writing about such personal pain. Some people say that could be very, very daunting. Were you ever afraid to let others read the truth that you wrote in that book?
I think absolutely.
Yeah.
There were different points in that writing process where I was really uncertain, mainly because I didn't have anyone read this book before I really published it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the one book of mine that I self-edited. I
Mm,
usually have an editor. I didn't actually send this one to my editor just because like I didn't know what to do. It's a shorter poetry book. I was like, it's okay. I corrected any errors that came up after I corrected. It was okay. But I did not know what people are going to think. In some way,
mm,
I didn't want people to read this book. I wanted to get it out there and just publish it just so I could say I did it. And just so the story was no longer hanging over me. But yeah, I've always, throughout any of the books I've written that are remotely based on a true story anyway, I'm always worried that anyone who might be a character in it or anyone who's like a part of the real life stories I'm writing about is going to read it. And it's really just something I've had to let go of. I mean, in some ways I'm experiencing it right now because
yeah.
I'm reading this book. I'm not reading this. I'm writing this book. It's the one, it's called Good Kids Bad Choices, and I have
Mm,
2 chapters that come out every week on Patreon just because it's this very long book.
yeah.
In many ways it's related to You Won't Know Her Name. In many ways it is its own story with its own cast of characters. And yet still there are real things that happen to me in the story. There are characters that are based on real people. And it's really been this process of like letting go and like acknowledging like this is what happened
Mm.
and that's okay. And it's okay to write about it. You're not wrong for writing about something that happened to you.
So you writing about this, that means you had to do a ton of research about this. So did it help freeing yourself first, or did you in the writing process, did it actually like help you free yourself, like not be a victim and really let things go as you're doing your writing process? Or is that something you had to go through, like almost like your mini therapy process, as you're researching about how to let things go, how to channel your, I guess, your emotions through the things that happen to you? Because a lot of times, like I was saying in another podcast, uh there's been research that says the stories we tell ourselves, 50% of it is false, right? Which is kind of crazy if you think about it. And our past, which is, a lot of times our fears are wrapped up in a story that was told to us by someone, or we told to ourselves, right? And we hold on to that. How did you let that go?
I think ultimately it was a step in the right direction. It wasn't necessarily like You Own Her Name wasn't the whole process of letting go for me.
Mm,
Mainly because things continued after the publication of You Wonder Her Name. There was more to that story that, wasn't told that I didn't think was going to tell. And then
mm,
in some ways I haven't told it. In some ways we have good kids, bad choices. But
mm,
ultimately what it allowed me to do was just sort of disconnect myself.
yes.
Like I have this whole thing, this like story living inside of me. Some things I was like, I don't actually even remember when this happened, if this happened, how this happened. I know it happened. And because when it comes to trauma, the brain tends to forget.
Yeah.
So in some ways, I used it to also document what I remembered before I forgot. And I know now because there are things in You and Her Name that I don't actually remember happening. I know they did. But so in some ways, it was like this document process, but it was also just a way to connect with other people. I've had so many readers reach out to me and reviewers and just people comment and be like, this book brought me back to my own middle school years. This book made me realize I'm not alone. And that's really been the most important thing because if I have people realizing they're not alone, then I'm also realizing that I'm not alone.
And see, that's the great part about connecting because, and you said something that was very pivotal. You said it helped you disconnect or disassociate yourself with the pain, and I call that. I call that honestly removing triggers. You remove the trigger. You know, a lot of people, especially I'm 41. Some people carry a lot of triggers. But they say that triggered me, and I always tell people, don't don't get triggered. Remove the triggers. And kind of what you were saying with disassociating yourself, you removed yourself from that situation. You removed the trigger, and now when you're able to go back and, as you said, document the situation, it has a different effect on you. Where now you can process the pain in more of a reasonable way. That now you can look on it as a lesson learned or as I guess as something that happened to me, but it didn't define me. And
Yeah,
that
it's
was
like
truly amazing.
more so it's like this experience that
Yes.
has like allowed me to put new things into my writing and has like in some ways enriched my writing, but it's just also, I think it's made me a better person.
Mhm. And man, that's so cool. You know, in your past interviews, you describe how writing about things that upset and scared you, you was always to lift the weight off your chest about being bullied. You talked about that, and then you talked about how pouring your pain onto the page helped you heal and reclaim your power, like we was talking about earlier. Did you discover anything about yourself in that process that is unique to yourself today?
Ooh, I can think of a couple different things. More
Mhm.
so my brain actually jumped to a different book for that question.
Yeah.
And it's that like I've learned like okay, I've learned a lot of lessons. And in some way I guess this is learning about myself. In some ways it's learning how to treat myself.
Mm.
But there's this one book I wrote. It's another one that's like it's remotely similar to You Own Her Name in the way that
Okay.
I took real world experiences and bullying, but it's a completely different story. It's a completely different set of experiences. And that book started as this shower thought that I had of like, what would I do if I traveled back in time and met my younger self? What would I say?
Ooh.
How would that happen?
Ooh.
Would she be proud of me? Would I be proud of her?
Uh-huh.
And that taught me to be a lot nicer to my younger self. This was another book. This was not, well, this was one of the easiest writing processes I've ever had. It started actually I wrote a screenplay about this for my creative writing class freshman year. And then I translated that screenplay basically into a novel. It was one of the easiest writing processes it was beautiful.
Yeah.
And it was one of those books where it was like this I needed to write this. And through all of the million rounds of editing and just the writing, I've learned like, hey, I need to appreciate my younger self.
Yeah.
Just as the main character learns to appreciate her younger self. Because like, yeah, I was weird when I was 10. I was the kid that people didn't want to sit with or play with. But look where I am now. And all of
Yeah.
those experiences shaped me and like brought me here.
Yeah.
So I think writing that book like taught me like that one, it's okay to be weird. It's
Yeah.
okay to not be popular in elementary school. No one cares.
Yeah.
But it also taught me to appreciate myself.
And that's pretty awesome. Guys, if you listen, I know we're just going back and forth, but if you have questions, please get in the comments. I will ask the questions as they come up. Man, this is very, very good conversation. With all the different genres that you explored, which is your favorite?
That's a good question. I always jump between it because in one way, like science fiction has been my favorite genre since I was a kid. I grew up with Star Wars. That was my stuff. And yet I've almost grown from it, but I'm also like, that's the genre I always find myself going back to. If I don't know what I write, if I'm having a challenging time thinking of like my next book, it's
Mhm.
going to be sci-fi. That's where I
Mm.
can always think of new ideas, where I can go back to these worlds I've created. I
Mm.
also, though, I really love fantasy. I'm trying to brainstorm an idea for the book I'm going to write next. Hopefully, it's going to be like a shorter, slightly more on the novella side than a novel, or maybe like a middle grade novel. And I want it
Okay.
to be this like magical realism fantasy novel because that sounds very relaxing. And I also
Mm.
need to keep this one in like constraints because I want to also use it as my final project for my creative writing class this year. So I'm like trying to balance that, but I also feel like fantasy is one of my favorites. I love these like creating these other worlds and these characters, but there's also a place in my heart for contemporary.
Mm.
I mean, I love like books that are like social commentary that take place on Earth in this like current, in like, yeah, in this current
Yes.
timeline, everything like that. Like, that's also amazing to me.
Do you find that more, I guess, effective when you're trying to get out a message or you're trying to issue a perspective to people that might not be commonly the theme, I guess, of the social order at this moment in time?
Yes and no. I think it's like it depends on the book. Like I have some books where I feel like, yeah, the readers are getting the subtext here. And yet I have
Mm.
other books where in some of my more fantastical books and I'm like, "Oh no, the readers aren't catching it." But with
Mm.
contemporary, it's definitely much easier to get like a real world comment across and a point across just because you can put it in their face. It takes
Mm.
place on Earth, so we can say a lot about Earth in this current time. Whereas all my books that take place in the future, I have to sort of create my own systems to get
Uh-huh.
this like modern message across, and that can become tricky. It can also be awesome, and it's really really cool when I get that right,
Mhm.
and when I have readers picking up on these like on these like commentaries that yes they're set in the future, but they have so much to say about right now,
Yeah.
and it's always hard to tell, and it's really also like something that's like it's a skill you can always keep like refining when you're writing.
And see, one thing I love reading. Now I love reading. Before I used to hate it because I was really poor at it. But more and more I read, I enjoy a lot of science fiction. And then also I lived in Japan for
Oh,
7
that's so
years.
cool.
Thank you, thank you. I used to go down to the manga stores and just read and read, and I'm in love with anime. Like the whole, like the different genres inside anime that make anime. It's amazing to me. So basically, what I'm trying to get to is like your journey, you know what I'm saying, as, a young lady, and you're going into science fiction, you're going to different genres and you're writing these stories. Did you ever think about like adapting that into a anime or a manga or
I
any
think
of
about it all the time.
that?
Yeah, a manga adaptation or even a graphic novel adaptation would be amazing. So one interesting thing about me is when I write is it
Mhm.
always depends on the books, but I have some times where I actually imagine everything going on as anime
Ah,
rather than actual like actors and real people like in my head
yeah.
as I'm writing. Because
Uh-huh.
very often like I'll imagine it being like a movie. But I have some books where I can only imagine them as like these like animated characters. That's probably because, and also that was a lot mainly when I started out, because the only thing other than Star Wars that I was watching
Mhm.
when I was like 12 was anime.
Yeah, yeah. So, what's your favorite anime?
Okay.
No, okay,
Dang.
that's
I
probably too
jump
hard.
Yeah, that's hard. I
Okay,
jump between them.
okay. What's the 5 that you currently are binge watching?
Ooh, okay. I haven't watched any in a long time, but I'd say like I
Okay.
can probably give you a top 5. Like
Okay.
at least the ones I've rewatched recently. I love Death
Mhm.
Note.
That's my number 1.
I love Sword Art Online, which is unpopular, but the first season's really good.
Yes,
It
yes.
gets a little bit wild. The first season was really good. I loved Hunter x Hunter when I was a kid. I watched it when I was like 10, which was a choice,
Wow.
but I don't necessarily regret that because it was good.
Yeah.
What are some other ones that I loved? I was Naruto for Halloween one year.
Wow. Like, actually Naruto Uzumaki.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That was my Halloween costume when I was like I mean when I was really young, I was really into Beyblade.
Beyblade for real?
Yeah. I went to
Yo.
tournaments. I was obsessed.
What?
Yeah, and so I have yeah, when I was a kid, like I watched like all like 15 seasons of it.
Uh-huh.
I was also really into Pokemon when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the experience of like anyone that's like literally almost every kid. If
Yeah,
there's one
yeah,
anime
yeah,
they've
yeah.
seen, it's Pokemon.
Yeah, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is my
Oh,
thing, like, yeah, I'm dating myself now, but,
no,
you know
I was also into Yu-Gi.
yeah, okay, okay. Yeah. My goodness. So I do have a question for you. You said you put yourself out there, right? And there can be a lot of backlash, because of course the internet isn't always applauding your accomplishments. You get those people in the comments that just they find joy in tearing you down, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes with all the hundreds of supportive comments that you get, right? It's that one, that mean comment. In fact, I heard about the incident where there was a simple typo in someone's repost of your video that led to a storm of misunderstanding, and
Oh
people
my
came
gosh.
for you online.
That was one of the craziest things that's ever happened to me. For context too, I was 14 when that happened.
Like,
And
yeah, tell us about it. What happened?
oh my gosh, yeah, that was okay. So I was 14 and a couple things happened. First, I published Never Dying, which it's literally my most sold book. It's a great book. It's a 4-book series and it was really taking off online. I had my
Mhm.
first video go viral and I was posting videos. It was going well. And I also noticed that like in the month, I think it was like August 2022, that I'd gotten like a lot more sales and I was like, "Oh, this is great." And what I realized was there was a video of mine that had gotten reposted to YouTube Shorts without my permission, which was a little iffy. But I was like, it's okay because it's getting publicity. Except they happened to spell a word wrong in the caption. I mean, it's an innocent mistake. It happens to all
Yeah.
of us. But the thing is like I was 14 and I opened to like literally thousands of comments of people bashing me and being like, Okay, thousands is a bit of an exaggeration, but there was a lot. And there were
Yeah.
people like questioning my ability to write. And I didn't know how to say, like, hey, this isn't me.
Yeah.
And also one caption in a caption of video, or one like, typo in a caption of video doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Yet I was like, I was distraught for a day because I was like, oh
I
my gosh,
bet.
like, I'm never getting over this. This is like gonna
Yeah.
follow me everywhere. Ultimately, I don't think anyone remembers it, mainly because like, you know, and then there were people that were like, yeah, they were. It was a mess. And ultimately, the only thing I could do was just let it go and be like, well, I made this post. I can tell people like, hey, this isn't me. And beyond that, I'm sure the book brought some people
Yeah.
to like I'm sure the post brought some people to my books.
Yeah. The
Other
truth.
people might be like, oh no, she can't spell, but you know.
Yo, that's crazy. So that made you kind of stay to yourself, or staying true to yourself, right? Because you're like, I'm a teenager, but I didn't even do this. Or you blame it to me.
Yeah, because I think the issue is people are a lot harder on teen authors. I'm gonna say that gently because I think it's more so people are a lot harder on teen girl authors.
I
And
have 3 daughters. I'm a girl dad, so
I love that.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like people are definitely a lot harder
Mhm.
on just teen authors who happen to be girls. It's like, I have to like I basically have to tread really carefully on the internet because I know that anything I say or a video I make, if there's a typo, then there's gonna be a bunch of people coming after me. And it's like 30 I deal with where people like on my posts,
Mhm.
they're like, you didn't write those books. And it's like, it's fine now. But when you're 14 and like everyone's questioning whether or not your achievements are actually real, that's
Yeah.
a bit of a surreal experience.
Yeah,
I don't
I
recommend it.
bet. How did you and your family get through that situation? Did you stay offline, or did you just face it head on?
Ultimately, I just face it head on.
Yeah.
I recognize there are a lot more positive comments than there ever would be negative. And it's like, I'm the one who wrote these books. I know them. I have an editor who has read all of my books. I have ARC readers. I have these avid readers. The people that are commenting things about me in my books haven't actually read them. So in that way, it's like ultimately these people just come from this place of jealousy, and it's really unfortunate. Like I've had some crazy hate comments.
Wow.
I have this one, and it's literally the funniest thing I've ever heard. And they commented like, "I'm gonna buy your book just to burn it." I'm like, "Okay,
So you're gonna spend your money?
yeah, please do, and like post a video of this too. Like that would really help my sale."
My book is so good, someone bought it just to burn it. Yo, that is crazy. That's a crazy line. So, being a teen author, and you alluded to it, in the publishing world, is quite difficult. And it is sad to say, as a young lady who writing all these books, I didn't even think myself, like when I was reading up about you, I was like, I didn't think it come out, oh man, she couldn't write these books. I was like, yo, that's dope, that's amazing. Like, man, I really need to get on the ground because I'm kind of finishing writing one of my books. And I was like, yo, I need to get on the grind. It made me feel more inspired and motivated to do something. Right. And it's messed up that people are at a place where they get online, and I guess they kind of find amenity in going online, probably on a pseudonym, and posting and bashing some negative things to you. Has that ever made you think to, go under a pseudonym for yourself, or anonym, or, instead of just your real name?
But I
Yeah.
think it's like there's not. I mean, like some people have asked me, it's like, are you safe writing under your real name?
Yeah.
I think so. I think it's like I like having my books attached to my real name because I think
Yeah.
at some point if I wrote it with a pseudonym, I'd be like, well, no one in my real life knows these books are mine. And
Mhm.
it's kind of nice like seeing my real name, like the name I actually like identify with, the name like, my name on a shelf rather than just a name I came up with. But yeah, definitely, I mean, there are pros and cons to choosing pen names. I don't know. I like having my real name.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. So, being 17, you're gonna be 18 next year. What is your vision? What's your I guess your goals for the next 5 years?
Yeah, so I got to go off to college. I'm really excited about that though. I want to study creative writing.
Yes.
And yeah, I wanna try to go somewhere new, somewhere that like, isn't California because I have lived here my entire life. And I mean, it's great, but I wanna really see the world and see new places and have new opportunities. And then from there, I really just like I don't wanna stop writing. I wanna keep writing. I wanna keep improving. And I also, I would love to also have like film adaptations. I would love to
Mm.
do like a cross country book tour.
Exact-
There's so much that like as an author you can do that it's like I don't think it would ever get boring.
Yeah, especially in this generation. I met a couple of content creators that they're mini writers, and they actually, what they started doing, especially on Facebook, they kind of write short scripts, like anything from like, I would say from 2 to 5 minutes long, right?
Ooh, that's
And they
cool.
do it in like just blocks to get money, and they're making anywhere between $50,000 to $100,000 every like 3 months. It's great. It's
Yeah, that's
crazy.
awesome.
And I'm like, yo, I need to get on that. I mean, but I have an idea, but I just really need to get on the grind. With that, what is one country you would like to go visit? After, I guess, you're traveling.
Ooh, so I want to visit Japan. That's been
Yeah.
a dream of mine for a while. I definitely want to go to like Europe. I really want to go to Paris. I was gonna go with my school, but unfortunately the trip got canceled. And also like I take French, so that would be really fun.
Also, so how well do you speak French?
Not very well. I mean, conversational
Yeah.
to
No,
an
I
extent.
I got you. I used to speak Japanese almost fluently.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
then it's been, I want to say, a good 10 years since I conversed with someone. And the old adage, if you don't use it, you lose it. And I severely lost it. I have a coworker now that speaks almost fluently, and he tries to speak to me sometimes, and I'm like, and I be thinking for him, like, and I can't remember. He just be laughing at me.
That's how I am. Yeah, I'm like, I don't know if I really count as like conversational. Like,
No, I get you. I get you. I read that when asked if, that bullying in your school has improved, you responded, you said it hasn't. But one thing very interesting you said is, but I'm going to stay in the school and try to make that change because we need anti-bullying
ooh,
systems.
that's old.
Yeah, yeah.
That's old.
Yeah, but you said that, and you went to different schools, and now you're 1 year away from college. What do you see with that? Do you see, did that school come up with any programs or anything like that to combat that, or they just
Yes
let
and
it die
no.
out?
Boy, okay. I know that school has a no place for hate program now.
Mhm.
And what I remember is that I wasn't invited to be a part of it, and they started it when I was in 8th grade. That annoyed me because I advocated for it, and then I didn't get to be a part of it. And it was always like, "Oh, you need to speak to this teacher." "Oh, we're running it out of student ambassadors, so you'd have to run student ambassadors to do it." So I don't know if that's still going. Honestly, I haven't
Mhm.
seen anything about that for a while. I guess it's been
4?
almost 3 years now
4
since I
years? Mm.
graduated middle school, and I haven't been back since.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any adults from there since.
Dang.
So I don't
Yeah.
know. I hope they're in a better place. And yet I do know that it's the same administration. My name is probably a sore subject there, but that's okay.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. Yeah, like you
Yeah.
said, yeah. How has the journey been? Uh for you, has it changed you? Do you see like I guess when you're testing out a new book and you only get, I say 10,000 likes, does that bother you versus last week, you probably had like 20,000 likes and people are more engaged last week than they are this week. Is that daunting for you or do you just allow that to be the process?
Yeah, I think it's all part of the process. Not
Uh-huh.
every like for example, like not every day I'm going to be doing this like crazy successful event. Maybe every month I am, maybe every couple of months. I'm not I think it's all really just part of this process. What ultimately it's just like what I'm working towards, whether it's, publishing a ton of new books or it's like one day achieving that film adaptation, the sky's the limit. And it's like just because one day maybe a TikTok or maybe a book release doesn't do so well, it's all part of this process, like building up to like my like ultimate like hopes and dreams.
So you ever thought about like, I know you probably have a publisher and stuff like that, but since you're like writing a conglomerate of books about making your own publishing company?
That would be cool. Technically, I'm self-published, so I kind of am my own publishing
Oh,
company, but I'm not,
okay.
obviously
Yeah.
I only publish myself.
No, I got you. And that's true. That's true. Okay, that's pretty awesome. So it seems like to me that you're in love, not just releasing books, but you in love with the process that goes into writing, editing, and then reviewing and then the release for projects. So how many more books do you want to write or you see yourself writing?
It's hard to tell because I just want to keep on writing,
For
but it
real?
would be cool to be one of those authors with like hundreds of books. That would
Mm,
be so fun. And then I could have like a whole bookstore just like dedicated to my work.
wow. So who's your go author?
Okay, I love Lee Bardugo. She
Okay.
actually, I'm literally wearing a Six of Crows t-shirt right now.
Mm.
Um, yeah, she is like my all-time favorite author. I've also like I've met her a few times and she's just like the coolest person.
For real?
Yeah.
Dang. See, man, you had a good place in Cali, so I guess you meet everyone. Man, because Stephen King is like bar none, me and one of my coworkers' favorite author. And we talk about Stephen King, like the mind state you have to be in to write like that. And I just researching you is just like how you go between, you know, you know, uh sci-fi and different genres like that. That's simply amazing. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. So beyond your writing though, what do you do for fun when you're not writing?
Yeah, so I do a lot. I
Okay.
hang out with friends. I have 3 cats. So I love hanging out with my cats.
What
I
are the
also
names?
Okay, I have Apollo, Eclipse, and Jin. And yeah,
Okay.
usually I have them in here, but they're not in here right now.
Okay.
And I skateboard. I love like going on walks. And yeah, really
Mm.
I always have something to do,
Okay.
especially homework. But that's not I mean, it can be fun sometimes.
Just probably the creative writing portions, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness gracious, that's funny. That is so funny. Man. So no more Beyblades.
No, probably not. I mean, is that still in my bio on Podmatch? Oh my gosh. Yeah, my middle school bio follows me everywhere.
I see, I see. I was like, this Charlie needs updated. You know,
Yeah.
you being 17, and kind of alluded to it. Where do you see yourself 10 years or 20 years from now? What do you hope people will remember about your stories, your work, about you being an advocate for so many great things in your books and in the way you wrote?
Ooh, good question. So I hope to see myself, somewhere like awesome. I want to live in New York. I feel like that would be so fun.
Uh-huh.
And then yeah, hopefully doing lots of events and interviews and publishing books. I feel like a midnight release party or like some sort of awesome like event inspired by my books would be so cool. And then beyond that, yeah, I hope people just like remember, maybe like like the messages in my books, the overall meanings and like the ideas of like, you know being a good person and sort of like standing up for what you believe in.
So what book that really didn't get that much acclaim that you value and you prize in your heart that meant so much to you writing?
Well, I really like the Bane of Angel Hill Academy. That book, I love the world of it. I love the like school that it takes place in. I love all the little like magical realism. And yeah, I mean it did well, but it didn't do like my other books.
And when you write about magic, when you write about this utopias and different things of that nature, do you do a lot of research about like the ancient times, or do you grab from Star Wars a lot, or different things, or different themes like
It definitely depends on the book. I
that?
have some books where it's like all from my head. Other books where I like try to like derive some inspiration from like mythology or stories I like. And yeah, it really depends on like what that book needs to be successful and what that like story needs to be like complete.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. So, if we wrapped all this up finally, and most importantly, there's definitely young people listening tonight who will be like, "Oh my goodness, I really need to get on the ball. Oh my goodness, she stood up to this in middle school. Oh my goodness, she wrote this book and she's writing so many more." What message do you hope your journey gives to someone out there who needs a little bit of encouragement and hope right now?
Yeah, honestly, the number one message, don't give up.
Uh,
And also don't let your age get in the way of what you can or can't do. Like, don't
uh,
let that define you. Mainly because, like I've heard so many teenagers and even older people as well be like, well, I'm too old or too young to write a book. And ultimately, that's never the case. You're never too old or too young to write a book. And once you realize that, then you can really just like let go of this, like, sorry.
bless you,
You
bless
can,
you, bless
yeah,
you.
you can let go of that, like, and really just start because your age shouldn't define your abilities. I know plenty of teenagers who write better than most adults, and really the only way to improve and to reach your dreams is just to keep going.
It's crazy. Like, what does your writing process look like when you're writing all these books?
Yeah, so I start out with an idea.
Mhm.
Right now, I'm kind of in the part where I'm finishing up a book, and so I have a new idea that I'm going to start soon. And
Mm.
basically within that, I'm always writing and editing a book at the same time. I have a first draft that I'm working on, and then a second or third or fourth draft that I'm preparing for publication. And it really helps me like keep shaking it up. It helps keep things interesting.
Mm.
And yeah, so I usually within that process, I write 1,000 words every single day, no matter what. And I'm not the biggest outliner. Usually what I
Okay.
do is I write and write and write, and then I have this general overarching idea of how this book is going to be. And
Okay.
as I'm working towards that, like over, like that surrounding idea, then I'll start to go into the little details and I'll start to plan like scene by scene. And sometimes when I'm halfway through the book, I have a clear outline of how the rest of the book's going to be.
Mhm.
At the same time, I'm always surprised. There's always something new that happens. There's always something that I'm like, I didn't actually think of that. I didn't think of that. I should have thought of that sooner. Like, oh my gosh, like that's not something I planned, but that's really good. So it's really that perfect blend for me personally of that
Right.
plotting and then just completely like going at it.
So how do you keep track of all your plot lines?
It's very messy how I do it, but what I do is I keep all my notes at the bottom of the chapter I'm working on.
Okay.
Yeah, just right. Like sometimes it's really funny because I have these notes in all caps that are like, this character needs to do this.
Yeah.
Or imagine if this happens, and I have these like this like paragraph where I'm like, well, this would, and I look at what I've written, like this would be so cool. And but that helps me both keep track of it and just like if I write it down, I'm not gonna be anxious about forgetting it. Because I feel like if I have an idea and I'm really anxious about forgetting it, I'm gonna forget it.
So question, you written over 34 books, right? But you only published like what, 20,
Yeah.
20, 21, or 22, right? So
20
what
and a half.
20 and a half. So what happened to the other like 14 or 15?
They're just in my backlog. I have one of those that I have a printed copy of that I'm like editing by pen and paper right now.
Mhm.
I have most of those books. I have an approximate idea of when they're going to release.
Mhm.
However, most of the time that changes.
Yeah,
It's more
gotcha.
just like I select a book based on like what I really feel excited about
Right.
and what I think would do well. And I have one book fully completely done and I'm querying it actually to try and get an agent for it.
Wow.
So yeah, it's really they're all in different places. I have like one or two books that like most of these are new books currently in that backlog. I think there's only maybe one or two books. I think it's three
3.
of those that I wrote in middle school that I just haven't done anything with yet. Two of those are sequels to a series that's like it was my first series. I mean, it's done well, but it hasn't done like my other books, so I'm kind of tempted to spend so much time trying to work through something I wrote when I was 12.
Yeah.
And then I have one more that's the villain origin story for the Chronicles of Zyle Delane series.
Mhm.
And that's more just a matter of like getting that done and like facing this book because it's a very strange book because it was the first villain origin story I ever wrote.
Uh-huh.
So in that way, I'm like, ooh, it's probably really questionable and the character's really questionable, but it's supposed to be, but did that land right? So it's all like stuff to think about. And it's more just like fitting those sort of what are going to be less successful releases simply because you have to read like 2 or 3 books to get to them. I'm sort of fitting those into my schedule.
So question with the villain origin story, which I find very fascinating. Are you writing in the sense of like you're gonna make, I guess, the reader empathize a lot more with the villain?
Yeah, it's definitely one of those.
Yeah, okay.
And that was the thing that I was tricky about because I'm like, this villain is genuinely one of the scariest and evilest characters I've ever written. This is gonna sound terrible, but he's this like sort of immortal, at least for now, being who's like possessed by this like magic and well, he's not possessed by it, but he's like gone crazy with his power and this magic, and he uses it to like basically capture the ghosts of kids and have them be his servant. And I'm like, how are we supposed to sympathize with this guy?
Yeah,
Yet
yeah.
he actually does have this compelling like origin story.
Mhm.
And yet I also, one thing is that he's like in the book, he's the town outcast. And I was like, well, I don't want to make it seem like he's the villain because he's being bullied.
Yeah.
That can't be the case. And so it's this really iffy line to walk because I know that it's like, as someone who's been bullied, I'm not a villain. So
Yeah.
what is it about this guy that's a villain more so than he's being bullied so he's going to turn evil because that's not okay. So yeah, it's sort of this like balance between just these different like sort of plot devices and things that are happening and making them work together and not against each other and not against my own morals and then like the comfort of the reader.
No, I got you. Man, that sounds like a lot of good stuff. The floor is yours. You tell us what you got going on, and I want my audience to go out there and support it. So go ahead.
So right now, the big project I'm working on is Good Kids, Bad Choices. It's very long, like almost 80 chapter novel. And 2 chapters released every week on Patreon. So I have chapters. What chapters are they? I believe it is 20 and 21 tomorrow.
Okay, 20 and 21. So that means you're 11 weeks in so
Yeah,
far.
I'm 11 weeks in.
Okay.
I believe. Yeah, something like that. No, I'm not exactly 11 because I had like 6 chapters released the day the book came out.
Snap.
Approximately,
Okay.
it released on February 1st.
Oh,
So
February. Okay.
I'm like 8 weeks in.
8 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, it's going well. It's one of these books that's like it's a long process. It's like if I could, I would have just cut this book down. I mean, this is a 50,000 word book. I would have cut it down enough that it could be just published as one book early on. And yet it's not that book. It is, despite being a very long book, it's very concise. It's not like there's these long drawn out descriptions or scenes that could be cut. It just happens to be this very long story. I mean, this long story takes place over the span of like 2 months, but it's still like there's something happening every day in the lives of these characters. It's important that like pushes the story forward. So in that regard, there was nothing I could do but keep it this length. So I wanted to have this release on Patreon first. More so because I wanted to see, like, I need to test the waters. I need to know what people are going to think about this book. And it's almost a little bit of a stress-free way to do it because of the fact that it's like I can market this as like, hey, this is almost like a beta round. This is, this is something new I'm trying. And it'll help. Oh, we're going to say, sorry.
No, keep going. Sorry.
It'll like help me because the people that are going to obviously subscribe to my Patreon are going to be avid readers for the most part. They're going to be like my readers. So it really helps me see how my audience is going to like perceive this book. And then in a couple months, once all the chapters are out, I will definitely publish this as just a regular one of my books. It's going to be giant, but it's more just right now trying to get that sort of like test and like really see like, okay, how is this going to go?
Right. And I just had a quick question. Is since you're doing it through Patreon, are you able to track and perform like I guess market analysis with clusters and find out like where's your target audience at? Like what cities do people like cluster in and how long they takes them to read each chapter?
I wish. It's not that detailed, but I do get some of that. Like I can see the list of my readers. They have like forms they have the readers fill out, like kind of saying like what kind of content they want, what they're interested in. So all of that together really does help. But it's more like, I mean, I think my KDP, my Kindle Direct Publishing demographics are maybe a little more detailed.
Got you. Well, thank you so much for this wonderful interview. Thank you for being here. You are simply amazing, and I would love to keep touching. Hopefully, in the future, once you have like I guess your 4 or 5 more books published, I would love to have you on again. And man, just really, really tell us what's going on, because I really want to support you in all that you do as you grow in this field and this because honestly, it really touched my heart and made me think about when you said like as a young lady growing into a young woman, as a writer you have to deal with so much fluff that you shouldn't have to deal with as a writer.
Yeah.
It should be straight to the point, and that's sad in the world that we live in, but I'm going to make it my mission whenever I can to support you in all that you do, and hopefully my my audience and viewers do the same. And thank you, I appreciate you for being
Thank
here.
you so much.
Video stopping session. Cool beans.